Hello, lifers, and welcome to a very special episode of Because Life Can Be a Niche podcast. Wherever you are watching, if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening, wherever you get your podcast, we appreciate you and thank you for coming into the living room with us. Today, I'm excited because I get to sit down with my sorority sister, a very dear friend, and an amazing, talented, beautiful woman who has so much to share and a story to tell. She's not only my sorority sister, but also a faith-filled sister who has taken the music industry and recording career and traveling from being involved at such a young age, starting singing and performing at age 3, and then going on tour, opening up for people like Destiny's Child and 112, to gospel recording, to now having our own production company and also appearing in films and making music and developing musical and most talented and outrageously talented family, and married to the love of her life, her soulmate, who is also in the industry. It's such a beautiful story. But I invite you here to sit with us on these 3-4 episodes, because it is so much to tell and so much to share that it is, to me, definitely something that is worth the series that we're giving it, because we go and we talk about the industry and making it in the music industry, to living and healing through chronic illness, something that she deals with on a regular basis, but is coming on the other side of that, to also healing from sexual abuse and childhood trauma, and coming out on the other side of that. It is definitely a story that you need to hear and share, and just, sit down with us in the living room and just give a moment to everything that's happened in her amazing life, and then where she is today and with her family, and all the wonderful, amazing, incredible things that we are about to see, and even more to come. So thank you guys for joining us. And I'm excited to have Beauty Munoz on the scene with me. I can't wait for you all to hear everything and just share in this journey with her, and joining us on this podcast to do so. Thank you, and let's take a listen. Hello, lifers, and welcome into the living room. I've already told you who we have here today, Beauty Munoz, and I am just so excited to have her join us. So we're going to jump right in. Beauty, welcome into the living room with Because Life Can Be a Niche. We're so thankful to have you here.
Thank you, and I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome. I've already told everybody about who you are to me. So I'm just going to start telling them, let's go and get into it and talk about your story and how much life you lived, girl, in such a short period. There is no doubt, no question about your singing and your beautiful voice. I think it is absolutely a gift from God. It is your instrument, and it is moving and powerful. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about just singing. How did it all start for you? When did it hit you? Like, Mama, I want to sing. When did that happen?
Well, I grew up in a church family, and my great-great-grandfather actually founded the church that my cousins and aunts and uncles, my mom, everybody, they still go to this day. So I grew up, singing. That's all I knew. Congregational songs. And when I was about 3, this is probably the earliest memory I have. of singing in front of an audience. My mom and dad and cousins used to stand me up in a chair, and it was me and my sister and maybe about 4 or 5 of my cousins, and they would stand around me, and I would sing, and I would just be belting it out like a toddler, but I had like this big voice as a kid, and they were like, "Ooh, she gonna be somebody," you know how us country folk are, but they really, really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed singing for the Lord and singing in front of an audience, and just, you get that immediate feedback. It's not like being in a recording studio where you have to wait to see if somebody likes the song, but it's that immediate, interaction with an audience. But that's where it all began. And it was just instantaneous. I just knew this is what I want to do.
Automatically. So at 3, when you were singing, you were never afraid to were you at no stage?
I was not.
Really?
Well, like throughout different periods of my life, I guess depending on the event, I would have some, jitters, or I would say maybe nervous energy, or I feel like, oh, I got to drink all this water. My throat's getting dry and my throat's closing up. Give me another bottle of water. But over the years, I think that's just part of how my makeup is. But I was never afraid. The nervousness was not fear. I think the nervousness was, I don't want to mess up. I don't want my throat to be scratchy, or I don't want, to need some water in mid, while I'm trying to belt out this song. But it was never afraid of the crowd or afraid of the stage or the mic. Even at 3, it was never fear.
Okay. That is really good. Because a lot of little kids, you can't even get them to come up and say Happy Easter. They be standing up there and they say, "Say your speech," and then the child just start crying. So even had that kind of courage, it was almost like it was almost gifted to you. It was gifted to you at an early age.
God given for sure.
Yeah. Did it going through school, did you enter talent contests or talent shows, or how did you nurture that gift? Was it just chorus in high school, or what did you do in high school to just continue to develop your craft?
Well, it was a combination of all of those things. I was a community singer. If anybody needed someone to open a baseball game, if they needed someone to sing at weddings, funerals, church events, any and everything in between, I was the person that they would call, and they would, call my mom and say, well, is she available to sing, at my wedding, or we're having a choir reunion and we want to put her on program. And, so it really kind of took off from there. And then I started doing things, of course, at school. I think probably as early as middle school. We called it junior high back in my day, but don't want to date myself. But
that's what we called it.
In middle school, I started chorus, and I just carried that all through, even through college. I was always in choirs and smaller ensembles. Some of them you had to audition to be a part of, or you had to be invited to be a part of. And I did like honor chorus and all state chorus, and where you would compete and things like that. So I really got a lot of my choral background and my choral training in middle school, high school, and college.
Awesome.
And I ended up being a choir director for 10 years, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. So in performing at home, did people pay you when you performed?
Sometimes, we sometimes in different communities, it's not a given that you pay the people who participate in your wedding, or you pay the people who come to sing at your church. It's not always a given that you'll get paid. And I didn't even actually know that I should get paid because I hadn't gotten paid, traditionally. So I think the first time I sang at someone's wedding, I got $25, and I was in high school. And it was one of my classmates. I think she was maybe had graduated a couple of years ahead of me. And the mom paid me. And I was like, for me, I didn't realize. And she was like, honey, you've been singing all around this town and nobody's been paying you. And I said, no, ma'am. So at that point, the light bulb went off like, oh my gosh, I've been investing years and years of just, singing for free. And that concept didn't shift until, in that moment. And then from then on, I wouldn't charge people very much. It would usually be around that $25 range for a wedding or something. So I kept it simple.
That was a steal. When people hear you sing later in this podcast, I'll be like, $25, that's the tip. That is not the But going through talking about it, because our journey started in college. We met at UGA, and of course, we're sorority sisters. And Delta Sigma Theta baby. And so we got a taste of your talent just from seeing you perform even before you were initiated into Delta, just seeing you perform then. But through college and then after that, where did your career go after UGA?
Well, I actually ended up getting signed to a management deal right after UGA. I had gone to audition for a group, actually, for Cut Close, a popular 90s R&B group. And at the time, they were so-called, restructuring, breaking up. It was only going to be Athena Cates, the lead singer. And so I went to this audition, and immediately I looked around at all these gorgeous girls and everybody could sing. And I was like, oh my goodness, this, it was a little intimidating. And it was, industry folks that I recognized, Keith Sweat and all these different people that were, household names in the R&B game back then. This was probably around 97, 98. And so I saw Athena in person, which I'd never seen her in person before. And she was like 4'11". And I'm like 5'3". And I said, okay, so they're not going to put me in this group. Let's be realistic. They're not going to put me in this group. So let me just, go for broke, do my thing. And I did. And there was a scout there. Well, not a scout. He was actually Keith Sweat's manager. And he was looking to put his own group together. And so out of the people that were not going to be in Cut Close or were in the running or whatever, he had his eyes kind of set on them for another group. And that group became Roxy, and I became the lead singer. And, long story short, that's what kind of jump-started my professional career. I went from community singer to an actual recording artist, traveling and touring and signing autographs and all of that stuff. And it was a blast. It came with its challenges, but that's part of what kicked off my professional career.
Not many. Don't worry about the fur baby. I see you get nervous with the fur baby box. Don't worry about it. He's trying to tell his story because he got a story to tell too.
He wants to put his 2 cents in. What about me?
Tell him about me.
Talk about me.
But from that and the challenges, that is amazing. First of all, to just people pray to get signed so early, and for you to get signed that fast, and then meet all these people in the industry, and it just take off. So where did it go from there? Did you tour, or how was that? What was it like? And being so young, because I'm assuming at this point, like, are you the youngest in the group, or are you guys all the same age around?
Actually, I was the youngest in the group, and there were 5 of us. And initially, it took a while to get to that final 5, and that's what we called ourselves, because it was like a kind of a revolving door. One day you show up to rehearsal, and there may be another completely different girl that you've never met before. And what management was trying to do, they were trying to create a super group, basically. This was before the age of reality shows and making the band, and it was before any of that. But I'm telling you, if we had cameras rolling back then, we would have been number one with the ratings,
Was
because
it drama?
it was drama, it was chaos, it was a lot, right? But
Uh-huh.
I mean, not amongst us. We really, once we got our final five, I should say,
Hmm.
we gelled and we became sisters. But prior to that, it was, it's like, I don't want to get too close to this person because I don't even know if they're going to be in the group. I don't even know if I'm going to continue to be in the group. You were kind
Hmm.
of walking on eggshells, like, am I going to be replaced in the next week? And it took us a while before we actually started recording, because we went through a, this was in the day of like true artist development, which is a lost um, art form that I think we, as an audience member, as a consumer of music, we kind of we have missed out on that in today's music, because when you're talking about Joe Jackson and how he whipped them Jackson Five in the shape, when you're talking about Matthew Knowles, when you're talking about people who know the business, and it was it. I'm not advocating for, you know, anything that is extreme, but I'm saying artist development works. I was developed as an artist. I learned how to command the stage. I learned how to have mic control. You know how some people just be singing all like this with the
Yes,
microphone. No, 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 no.
right.
That's no. Your
That's not what
technique.
you're supposed to do. Look,
You,
look.
that's very showmanship like of you. But
Yes,
how can people hear you if you're moving the mic all around, ma'am, sir? So,
yes. And if I
but
could sing, I would do that. I cannot. I cannot carry a tune in a bucket. If they said your life depends on singing, y'all just come on to my funeral because that's what's gonna happen. But
not to the
when I
field.
see people, girl, yeah, it's gonna be a good funeral. They be like, she tried to sing. They told her your life depends on it, and she lost. But
And now
when
Beauty
I see
singing at
people
her
with that
funeral.
mic, yeah, right, and they're doing this, ah, that's not. You
Right.
shouldn't be doing all of that.
That's that's not the way, boo boo. That's
Doing
not the
this.
way, because you're losing your sound, but your audience is losing. They're getting the showmanship, but you can't even hear what you're saying. So
Mm.
I learned things like that: mic control, stage control, how you you know, walk from different points on the stage to you hit those points to engage your audience, to hype up the crowd. You know, audience participation. And we had rigorous diet control. We had rigorous um, working out, breath control. We ran in place. We did all these kinds of um, exercises to increase our stamina on stage, because we were not only an R&B singing group, but we were an R&B pop dance group. So everything had choreography. Everything was up tempo. You know, we were the equivalent of what our management team, what they were developing was a group that could compete with the Spice Girls. So they were huge in Europe. They were breaking us in Europe. And one of the big major things was we come to rehearsal, and that may be all day. You may not go home. That may be an all day affair. Like, you come, you may break for dinner and go get something to eat. You come back, you rehearse some more. We had like a small room that we rehearsed in. Then we had the big room that actually had like a stage and mirrors, and they would cover all the mirrors so that we couldn't see to try to use the mirrors to cheat choreography, but you had to know that choreography. And, you know, we have two or three choreographers in the room making sure we were on point. We had our vocal coach, a whole team of people to make sure that this project and this group succeeded.
Mhm.
And I don't think in today's industry, it may be that way in some cases, but not so much, because we have a lot of independent artists and we don't have the label set up like it used to be. You have um, iTunes, you have Spotify, you have independent labels, and it's great. I'm all for it. I'm just saying I grew up under a different type of regimen where artist development was a huge part of how I now can do what I do, because I was taught
Right.
old school.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with old school because now you can take that old school discipline and use all of the new school things that are out there now to still
Mhm.
move your career along. When you were in Europe and touring, what was the reception like? I mean, because I'm assuming this was, for first of all, before we talk about the reception in Europe, that was your first time leaving the country, or had you been out of the country before?
Let me tell you, I am a country girl. I am a country girl. I
Me
will say it
too.
again.
Right.
I am a country girl. So
Uh-huh.
when I tell you at age, what was I, 24, I think, 23, 24, that was my first time. We actually went to a music conference in Vegas, actually Reno, Nevada, which is right near Vegas. We went to a huge music conference, and it was my first time on an airplane. I mean, many people fly on airplanes, starting as kids, but me, I was a grown woman, and terrified of turbulence. I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, keep me safe, keep this plane in the sky. I was pretty ridiculous, but having never flown before, you can kind of understand where I was coming from. But we did. I had one experience, flying to Vegas in the Reno area, and that music conference was fantastic. Of course, you meet all kinds of celebrities, artists, people that you listen to. I met Joe, I met Chico, we took Chico DeBarge, we took pictures with everybody. We actually performed. I think we performed during that time, and we had custom made gowns, and we had everything was custom made. We had our own seamstress, our own stylist, our own makeup person who traveled with us. We were signing autographs. Like, people would look at us and they knew we were somebody, but they didn't know who, because we didn't have any music. We had not recorded yet. We had not, all we had was our live performances. But because we moved, like, the saying, when you move like money, or you act like money, people think you got money. So they had us looking right. They had us looking right. We looked the part. No one had ever heard us sing a note, but we looked the part. So when Roxy was, stepping out, we got a lot of attention, and we had not even, dropped a single at that point. But anyway, we came back from Reno. It was still the grind just to get ready for this European tour. And we opened for Destiny's Child, the original Destiny's Child, because our manager was actually their road manager. He managed lots of people. He managed TLC, road managed, meaning when they go on tour, he's the person who is managing, not full-time manager. Yeah. But in 112, the group 112, it was a fantastic tour. So everywhere that they went, we opened. Every tour that they were booked for, we were the openers. Usually 112 would come next, and then the Destiny's Child were the headliners. So we had the same tour bus. We stayed at the same hotel. We ate at the same restaurants. But we did not hang out or anything like that, because
that was going to be my next question.
Each camp was separate, and we kept it very professional. And our management team made sure the focus is the music. The focus is the show. You're not going to get over here in Europe and, thinking you're going to hook up or thinking you're going to hang out. That's not the focus. The focus is the music. Because at that time we were being courted by Sony Europe for a distribution deal. And we were quite sure that we were going to be living in Europe at some point. Like, we were, the plan was to get established as European artists, because they love Americans. They love Americans. They love American music. We're like a novelty, just as much as the Spice Girls were to America. We would be the same to Europe. So that was the plan at the time. When we were in Europe, that was my very first time being away from home on Christmas. Christmas is a big deal. So I have never been away from my family during the Christmas season, but in bringing in the new year, in a different country, no less. But it was like a coming of age time for me. These were things that I've never even dreamed of before. When you're little and you say you want to be a star, you don't know what that entails.
Right.
you don't know the sacrifice, you don't know the situations you're going to be in, you don't know any of it. You're just saying as a little kid, oh, I want to be a star. Yeah,
Because it looks
it comes with
glamorous.
it's glamorous, but it comes with a price as well. I lived in
Mm-hmm.
a controlling situation. Everything was controlled,
Mm-hmm.
from what I ate, what I drank. In hindsight, that probably was beneficial because they didn't want us to drink soda. They wanted us to stay away from dairy and milk products, and that's all good. But their goal was to keep us thin. It was not to keep us healthy.
Right.
The goal was make sure you can fit these size zero dresses that are being made for you right now. So
Exactly. It's totally different when you talk about that. And I think, that's a part of it that I'm glad you're sharing, because for those who are listening or watching the podcast right now, especially young people, you see what they're seeing is the tour is really the the climax of uh, maybe a year, sometimes two, of the hard work, of the choreography, of the um,
mhm.
singing, and of the recording over and over and over again to get the notes right. And then it's like, now we're going to come out. And even then, the work is very hard behind the scenes
Mhm.
because it's grueling. Because I'm
Mhm.
imagining, and this is just what I've seen on TV, that you're performing night after night after night. Was that how it was for you guys too? Was it like back to back to back, and then you
Yes,
load up and then you're off to another city, and then it's back to back?
exactly. You have described it exactly as it was, and
Mm-hmm.
the leading up to it, I want to say 6 months to 9 months before we actually even went on the tour, to get ready for the tour, and it did take a lot of. When you say rehearsal, it's not just, oh, let me go up here and sing this song. No, you're full out choreography, sweating bullets in a huge room, but a hot room, and you're over and over and over. It doesn't matter if your muscles are aching. It doesn't matter if you get a cramp in your leg. You keep going because the show must go on. And it doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you're cramping. It doesn't matter because the show must go on. And so I developed that mentality, and I'm pretty sure that has helped me in my current life. In that, no matter what, if you have something that you have committed to, you have to see it through. You can't make excuses. You can't go around it. You can't go under it. You gotta
Right.
go through it.
That's
And we
right.
went through that process. We actually, I forgot, but we had a trainer. We had a trainer, so we went to weightlifting training, and we jumping jacks and running in place. I'm saying for hours, hours. It was a lot, but it after a while it became our way of life. It wasn't something that we complained about anymore because it's just part of the process. This is artist development. Welcome. That's what it was. And once we got on the tour, of course, knowing who Beyonce is now,
Yeah.
and knowing that I was on tour with her and Latavia and Latoya and Kelly back then, the original Destiny's Child, that work ethic is unmatched. So you
Mhm.
can imagine what we were going through, Roxy, with our regimen, and where 112 is today, and who
Mhm.
they were back then to the R&B industry. You have to recognize that level of discipline and that level of artistry.
Right.
So that's the kind of caliber of artists that we were amongst. And we could not be slipping. Our game had to be just as elevated as
Right.
theirs. And
That's right. So in the midst of all of that, because now you probably think, oh, I'm on my way. This is it. Were you loving it? Were you loving it then? Was it everything you thought it would be when you were a little girl?
no. The simple answer is no, it
Okay.
wasn't. And reason being, all that glitters is not gold. And
Mm.
yes, there were tremendous, wonderful experiences. We bonded so well. Like my sisters, that's Roxy, those girls are my sisters. And the bond that we forged during that time, you know, because we were all kind of going through this grueling but glamorous experience all at once. And so that bond can never be broken. But at the same time, when you see different things or you're subjected to a lot of male chauvinism, a lot of, I grew up where men were respectful, and you know, when people look at you a certain way, like they just literally want to stop you up with a biscuit, it's uncomfortable. And that was all the time. It's like eyes that were always looking at you, or somebody that was always, yeah, like, come on, really? I'm a person.
It's always one, and especially in those movies you see, it's like it's always that one lurker that you just like.
Honey, it was a lot of lurkers, is what I'm saying. The industry is full of lurkers. The industry is full of low down, shady individuals that they just have no self-respect, and so they don't have any respect for you. They don't respect your artistry. They don't care that you can sing. Maybe they care that you can sing, but they mostly care that you look good. And it's all about outward appearance. It's all about physique. It's all about what it shouldn't be. And that part really became an issue for me. Because the whole time, the same time, I was born in the Christian church. I was born again. I wasn't like completely going to church all the time because I didn't. That my life did not allow for it at the time. And neither did I didn't make time for God. I didn't make time for church. I didn't make time for any of that. Of course, I still prayed. Of course, we still came together as sisters, and we would pray before performances, and we would pray before rehearsals. And if anybody was having an issue, we'd pray. So we had a connection to our faith, but my faith really kind of sat to the background. But at the same time, I would always get this nudge in my spirit, like, something ain't right. Something ain't right about that. That don't look right, don't smell right, don't feel right. Something is off about an individual or about a situation. And the more that I got deeper into the industry, the more that unction was always nagging at me, like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And then it became, when are you leaving? I'm showing you this is not for you. I had, advances from people on my team, people in management that were approaching me inappropriately. And I think for me, that was the final straw, because I can't work under these conditions. Do you hear me? I can't. You want me to be this professional 20-something-year-old, but you're coming at me. You're 20-something years older than me. It doesn't even matter. Like, it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. And how can you expect for me to continue under these conditions? Do you want me to say something? Is that what you want me to tell somebody what you're up to? Because that's what it's going to come down to. Either I'm going to tell somebody or I'm going to leave. And I chose to leave. It's just, even if I had told someone that this person was making advances towards me, I don't believe it would have changed anything, because that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the industry. The music industry is foul, it's corrupt. Not for everyone in every instance, but for me, that was my experience. And I didn't want any more of it, not under those conditions. No amount of fame and popularity was going to be a good trade-off for me, because at that point we were not even getting paid. We let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that, because people that you're getting paid, right?
They see you riding in limousines. We had our own driver. We looked the part, but we were not seeing any money, cheddar, cheese. We were not seeing any of that. And none of it. And when I say that, I also have to say, in the industry at that time, you had a influx of artists who were basically they were in terrible recording deals, they were in terrible distribution deals, their publishing was messed up, and they were broke, they were filing for bankruptcy, they were homes were getting foreclosed on, and these are artists that you look at and you're like, how in the world are they broke? Because their contracts, because they basically signed their lives away, not knowing that you're not going to get paid for a while, because when you start making money, you're not making money. You're when your records start selling, all of those funds go back to repay the record company, the management company, the people who have invested money in you to get you to where you are. Now, see, I can see both sides of the coin. I really can, because I've been, on both sides of that fence as an artist developer, as a person who has invested into other artists' career. Because when you look at it, they were paying for our wardrobe. Whoever was doing our makeup on a regular basis, that person had to get paid. Our stylist had to get paid. Our vocal coach, who was there at every single rehearsal and traveled with us everywhere, they had to get paid. All the money for travel. I didn't pay to go to Vegas. I did not pay to go to Europe. That was paid for me. It's like, as an investment, they were investing into the artist and hoping to get a return with a hit record, a hit album. But it didn't happen for Roxy. It didn't happen. I left the group and it didn't happen. But I can understand. But as an artist, I'm saying I too can understand on the front end to negotiate, to make sure that the contract does not only benefit the record label or the management company or the distribution company. You got to make sure that you have some safeguards in there to at least have it 50-50. Yeah, they got to recoup their money, but you also got to get paid. It has to be, a dual win-win. Otherwise, you end up with folks who are broke, busted, and disgusted. And that, happens to so many artists. Probably not currently, because people have gotten wise to it in the last 20-30 years. People understand how important it is to have a good contract in place. So those were lessons learned back in the day, for sure.
Can you share what it was like? Because when you said you had enough and you walked away, that meant you had to break your contract.
I did.
So what did that mean in breaking that contract? What did you have to concede or give up as a result of walking away?
Well, that meant, I was contractually bound for 5 years. So that meant that I could not be signed to a label. I couldn't be signed to a management deal, publishing deal, distribute. I couldn't be signed as an artist whatsoever. Now, I could perform live, I could do gigs and stuff like that, but I could not get signed by anyone, because anyone who signed or tried to sign me, they had to come up under the contract that I was already bound to.
Wow.
And my manager would still get his percentage or cut. So basically nobody wanted to deal with me. And on my management end, they were quite perturbed that I had messed up their master plan, because that was going to be their next big thing. Roxy was their next big thing. And when I left, it just made that impossible, pretty much. So all of the money that they had invested, all of the training, all of the, professionals that they had in place to make us who we are, all of that kind of fell by the wayside. So rightfully so, they were upset with me. And so I was pretty much blacklisted. No, I couldn't get work. I couldn't work with anyone. The relationships that I had gained during that process of, recording with folks, being in the studio. I worked with Shakespeare, who he produced and wrote #1 hit for Destiny's Child. He did the Bills, Bills, Bills single, which shot to #1. He did No Scrubs for TLC. So I was around all of these both Candy from Escape, Tiny from Escape. They wrote a lot of our first songs that Roxy recorded. So we were always at Red Zone Studios. Tricky Stewart was there doing a lot of our music. We also covered songs that Dallas Austin had written and produced. So we were in the right place, right time, right people, right situation. But there were so many other levels of difficulty that, plagued us and plagued me personally, that it was just not worth it. It wasn't worth it.
What did your bandmates, your group mates, how was that? Because you say that you guys were close and you were like sisters. So when you said, I'm leaving, did they beg you to stay, or were they, I mean, how do you, because you're not only severing your contract and walking away from that part of your career, and it's walking away from those ladies that you guys did, you did everything together. What was that like in terms of your relationship?
That was that was hard. It was hard. Even though you kind of see like the handwriting is on the wall, because we actually, me and my manager in particular, we butted heads often. We would have these sit down meetings, and like he would just have us in there for hours just talking our ears off. And I was like, and then I was the vocal one. I was the spokesperson for the group. I would say what everybody else was thinking, but didn't want to say, or it wasn't their personality to say. So I was that voice that was against the establishment. I am like, so the handwriting was on the wall. They already knew, I had problems. There was friction, there was strife, there was I hated being controlled like that. I really did. I realized the benefits of structure and rehearsals, but there's a fine line when you cross over into someone's personal space, or there's personal life, and you're kind of trying to control who they date, or you're kind of trying to control who is in their life, or you're trying to control what job they have, because at the time they weren't paying us. And I know this is a little bit off of the question, but at the time they weren't paying us. So I was I had a degree. I'm fresh out of the University of Georgia. Like, why am I struggling to keep my apartment? Why am I struggling to keep my car? During that time, when I was in Europe, my car got repossessed. Let's be let's be real. And then they were trying to tell me that I couldn't work a regular job. And I'm like, I'm not tied to a job. I'm just temping right now. And I need to make money because you guys aren't paying us. I have to eat. I have to pay my apartment. Like, what are you going to do if I get evicted from my apartment? My car has already got repossessed. Like, I need to make money. And so they were always on me about, okay, you're late. Why are you late? Because I just got to work. Like, I have to work. But so those types of issues, they definitely fed into the strife and the discontent that I had with management. It was a husband and wife team, and they were just very controlling. Let me say that. And my bandmates, as much as they loved me and as much as they understood, it was hurtful, because not only was I ruining my chance, I was ruining their chance. Like, I messed it up. So there were a lot of hard feelings, and it took time to rebuild. And we are just really, since the pandemic, have reconnected to rebuild and tried to, But I will say this: they surprised me. Like, my husband Silos, he knows them because he was my artist developer. He had them come to my surprise 40th birthday party, and I was blown away. So that was, I'm gonna tell my age, y'all. I'm 47, but but that was That was 7 years ago. And then I had no
Mhm.
idea, like he, went around and because they knew him as the choreographer for the group. And he was also our artist developer. So he was the guy when we were in there running, he was the guy, keep going, don't stop. You better not stop. You better not stop. You know, what are you gonna do when you're on stage? So he and I, interestingly enough, he was able to bring them together and they surprised me for my 40th. And that kind of, it opened the door back up because the door was closed. It was closed. I mean, we tried, but we missed so much of one another's lives. Like when Silos and I got married, having kids, and, like we missed a lot of each other's lives
Yeah.
behind that big wound that was, opened when I left, and nothing really repaired it in those moments. It wasn't any amount of talking or trying to explain myself, or it just, they were like, we understand, but it still hurts,
Right. Because they
because they
never,
tried to.
yeah, I was going
I'm
to
sorry,
say,
go
what
ahead.
happened with them? Did they ever get an album, or did they ever do anything? Or was it really, the end of Roxy when you walked away?
It was the end of Roxy as we knew it. Now, a few of them tried to continue. They changed the name of the group and they tried to continue with recording and performing, but it didn't. It didn't take off, and we no longer had the support of a real team. Like
Mhm.
that management company, as flawed as it was a machine, and that machine's sole purpose was to crank out top artists. It was to crank out hits. It was to put the right people in the room together to make it happen. And so when we no longer had that support, excuse me, so when we no longer had that support system in place, everything just kind of, it fell apart. It slowly fell apart. And they were not, um, no, not really able to rebound as a group. Now they have gone off individually, and we have all, been very successful on everybody's individual front, doing their thing still in the industry. We have a
Mhm.
photographer, celebrity photographer. We have two film producers who've got several films and projects under their belt. We have an actress and recording artist. Besides me, I don't mean me. I'm talking about them.
Yeah.
I do all those things
Yeah.
too, but I'm talking about them. So everybody's successful, and we never strayed far from the industry, whether it was film and television or whether it was still making music. It's all, industry related, and the five of us are still plugged in. So we have a good
Mhm.
laugh now that we have reconnected about how life's journey has, brought us full circle, and we're still in the industry in some form or fashion.
Right. That is good. That is wonderful that you have reconnected. But let's back up a little bit, because you said your husband and how controlling it was, and that he was actually training you guys. So were you
Mhm.
dating when you were in Roxy?
Oh,
That went
mm-mm.
okay. Tell
No,
us.
ma'am.
Let's get on
Well,
that.
well, I say that they had a very, when I say they, when I use the term they, I am usually talking about the management team, the
Okay.
husband and wife team. Um, there was a very strict non-fraternizing policy that we had to sign, and it was strictly enforced because of the fact that there were so many. We're young 20 something year old artists on the rise around all of these industry people. You had 112, you had Chucky Booker, you had Myron, you had all of these. Sam Salter, who recently passed away, he actually wrote one of Roxy's very first songs that we went into the recording studio to record. But we were always surrounded by these good-looking, young men, and they were artists too. And our manager was like, "No, stay focused. Do not be caught somewhere chatting it up, ha ha ha, kikiing with somebody. No, you're here to work." And whenever they would, even if we would just say hi or someone said hi to us and we would say hi back, they were like, we saw that. We saw that.
Oh, wow.
No fraternizing.
For real.
Yes. For real. Like no fraternizing. And would bring out the paper and show us where we signed it and say, you signed this. No fraternizing. And I think in a very, I don't know, parental kind of way, perhaps they were trying to prevent a lot of things that can happen. You know, you were asking me about
yes, because I'm like, okay,
Philo. Yeah, no. No fraternizing. So it wasn't until about 3 years later, I had left Roxy. I had started singing gospel. So I left one version of the industry to go to another, because the gospel industry is something.
Yeah.
It has its own. It has its own. And so I was doing that and had gotten, you know, a lot of gigs, and I was performing locally, different churches, traveling a little bit, and singing as well. And also I had reconnected with some of my Delta Ensemble sisters, and we had started a group as well. And so we were traveling to various churches that we had connections to, whether it was North Carolina or whether it was Jessup, Georgia, or whether it was, you know, wherever we were invited to. But we traveled probably for about 2 or 3 years as a gospel artist, and we were called Redeemed. And the person who started that is my line sister, my sweet line sister, Lola. And we miss her so very much, but that was her brainchild. That was her baby. Of course, you know, she was dynamic on the piano, on them keys, and then she held down that alto note. So she actually put us together and said, yo, we can do this. You know, let's revive Delta Ensemble, and let's rename it Redeemed, since we're all, you know, sold out for the Lord, and let's just take this thing and go sing to the masses. And that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what we did. So that was part of the gospel thing that my husband kind of helped segue me into, because he came into my life right after, I guess, maybe about 3 years after Roxy, and we met one another. We saw each other, and, you know, started dating after some resistance on my part. But he initially was like, oh, this is me. Like, are you working for the enemy? Do you still work over there? Because I was blacklisted, and it's only been 3 years. I mean, I got 2 more 2 more years of blacklisting. I literally thought he was a spy.
You thought he came to like check up on you first.
Yep.
The spy.
I did. Now, do you think that was what do you call those, paranoia? Do you think that?